Welcome to Search for Wellness. Eating Cellular Wellness Solution is presenting to you a story on carbohydrates. I have prepared a story about concerning our carbohydrates as food and how we can interact with the carbohydrates and develop a healthy carbohydrate culture. We have heard that in Kenya and also in Africa, carbohydrates form a very big portion of our diet. A lot of carbohydrates per year in tonnage or in kilogram is consumed in a country or even in individual families. And so we end up per year consuming a lot of carbohydrates, which is a very important constituent of our diet. We cannot say because carbohydrates makes me put on weight, I am not going to eat carbohydrates anymore. Carbohydrates is very important and needed in the cells for energy and also for growth. This slide presents an example of wholesome carbohydrates. Some carbohydrates that are consumed all over the world, and others are consumed regionally as they manifest or as they are produced by the plants for us in a wholesome state. And carbohydrates which are very good and provide good starches for our daily consumption. Here we have arrowroots. Arrowroots, as they are called, roots that grow deep in the soil. And the whole plant has to be uprooted to harvest an arrowroot. The starch in arrowroot is very, very, very good. It is very good because it is not broken down very easily. It is not digested quickly. It is not broken down quickly into glucose to shoot the blood sugar. And consumption of arrowroot as a starch source is good because it presents good sustenance of glucose in the blood. These are whole maize. Maize is greatly used in Africa and many other parts of the world for starches. Maize in his wholesome state and refined is also very good carbohydrate source because it provides, as a grain, it provides oils, it provides vitamins, it provides proteins, and it also has complex carbohydrates that break down very slowly. This is rice, consumed greatly in the world as a refined rice, but in essence, it's best to consume it unrefined. Potatoes, Irish potatoes are known. These are a type of legume. Legumes also provide starches, but they are greatly known for their protein content. Bananas are loved greatly all over the world in their ripe bananas because they provide glucose for immediate energy when they are ripened. But in other parts of the world, like in Kenya, we also bananas are used in their green states, green bananas. They are used as starch sources. Corn is used as a vegetable in very many parts of the world, but we know that corn also provides starches. It also provides wholesome starch. And corn, like in popcorn, it is popcorn is a very healthy snack. So here, this diagram, it shows us that it is telling us it's good to know our wholesome carbohydrates that support wellness. It is in fact very good to know how to choose our wholesome carbohydrates which will support wellness. In a modern life system where most of our starches is coming, we get most of our starches from the supermarket and most times in the refined states. It is important to know our wholesome carbohydrates so that we can be able to make the correct selection. We are looking at the story of the carbohydrates. Welcome again into In Search for Wellness, where Eden's Cellular Wellness Solutions has prepared the story of our carbohydrates. It is very important to readdress the issue of our major food proportions, major food nutrient portion. Carbohydrates and starches, carbohydrates which are starches, form the greatest part of our food. And in this section, we are looking at refined starches. We are looking at refined starches, since they have become a very important part of our diet. And for many years now, we have consumed refined starches without worry or without any care. And most times you find that many people will not find any other starches available to them quickly apart from refined starches. So what are refined starches? What are refined starches? Here we are looking back into history and seeing that since the onset of industrial revolution in the first world nation, whole grains have been refined before milling to remove the seed germ. Whole grains, in the other section, we have looked at the sources of wholesome starches. And one of the major sources of wholesome starches is the grains. It's the grains like wheat grain, rice, amaranth, millet, sorghum, maize, corn. All these are sources of wholesome starches. But in modern times, since the onset of revolution, for the purpose of commerce and industry, for the purpose of preserving the milled grain flour on the shelves, the grains have had to go through a refining process. A refining process where the seed germ is removed. The seed germ is the life of a seed. The life of a seed is concentrated in the seed germ. And in here, in the seed germ, there are proteins, there are good oils, there are carbohydrates, there are minerals, there are vitamins, phytochemicals, all the things that are necessary for the growing of a new plant. This picture here is a representation of a legume, of a bean that has germinated. It has sent down the roots into the soil and it has sent up a shoot. This young shoot has not started making its own food. So you see that when a germinated seed has completely germinated, you go and find the skin only. But it's because the whole of this young shoot has consumed the stored food for the young shoot. The roots go down to look for water and more nutrients to empower this seedling to continue growing. So the seed germ, the seed and a seed germ is an incredible storage for food and the preservation of life. And to remove seed germ is to remove life of the seed. So during the milling process, the refining process takes place because the oils in the seed germ, with time, they start going rancid. When the seed is broken down and the oils are mixed up in the flour, the oils start going rancid. And the unga and the flour starts acquiring a bitter taste. And we say it is not fit for human consumption at that time. And so you can see how important and how nutritious seeds can be. So there's the removal of proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals, because you can see most of these nutrients are concentrated in the seed germ, where the outer part is what carries most of the starch. The refining process also removes the brown jackets. The jackets or the coat of the seed. The coat of the seed also carries some nutrients, like some minerals are carried in the coat of the seed. And this coat of the seed obviously provide the all-important fiber. So consuming the kind of refined starches that we have eaten for so many years, it means that we have been devoid of all these nutrients and also the good fiber. When therefore we talk of refined starches, is this part of our wholesome starches where most of the important nutrients have been removed during the refining process to ensure that the product stays longer on the shelves. I'm reminding us that we are doing a story on carbohydrates foods. Carbohydrates form a major portion of our food, especially in the countries of Africa and our country, Kenya. Carbohydrates are very, very, very vital. So we are looking at this story of carbohydrates as it interacts with our body cells and with its influence in our wellness. We are looking at presently at refined starches. We have seen why it has been necessary for the industries and commerce to refine the starches. The starches, the wheat, the flour is also bleached to make it completely white. And we know that today, white flour is extensively used by people in towns and also in the villages. In Africa and some of the so-called third world countries, there are many people, great populations of people reside in the upcountry areas. And so we are saying that in the towns where people do not farm, white flour is used extensively. White flour is also being used extensively these days in the villages. People, even in the villages, do not want to use brown flours like brown wheat flour, like brown maize flour, for purposes of making their meals. They want the refined flours because the refined flours, they taste sweet and they are easy. They find them very easy to cook. Here we are looking at a medium-sized family. A medium-sized family, maybe a family of 6 family members. A family of maybe 6 family members may consume about 40 kg of refined flour and fried grains per month. Why is this? Because carbohydrates form a major part of our diet. Carbohydrates form a major part of our diet. And so by the month end, the whole family will have spent enough resources to purchase almost 40 kg or more of refined flour and grains for their consumption. All refined flours. It is now, we have seen now that refined flours have been fortified with additional vitamins and minerals. In this country, for the last several 5 or 4 years, we have seen that the white flours have now been fortified. An amount of vitamins and minerals have been added. And this is a good thing. This is a good thing to try and fortify the flours because they form the day-to-day part of the meal. The today supply of energy and also required for other parts, other metabolic activities of the body. In this section, we are also going to look at a high starch diet. High starch diet. Still looking at the story of carbohydrates as they interact with our body cells to influence our wellness. So, what is a high starch diet? We know that the African diet is a high starch diet. To say that the diet is a high starch diet means that, for example, when on a serving on a plate, we find that the portion on the plate, the starch portion, is always bigger and larger than the vegetables or even the legume sources or even the meat sources. We find the meat source or lentil sauce may be very small and the vegetable sauce may be very small, but one may be consuming a whole mountain of white starch on the plate. Again, when people think about what meal to make, most times in this region, people will think, what am I going to cook? What is it, rice? Is it ugari? Is it chapati? Is it mokimo? Or what am I going to cook? Is it muthokoi? Is it biryani? Is it pilau? What am I going to cook? So when people have to think about what to cook, they have to think in form of the carbohydrate, because carbohydrate forms the greatest proportion, the biggest portion of our diet. And that is why we are saying that the African diet is a high starch diet. We find that there is more starch on the plate with minimal vegetables and protein source or none at all. So we find that it's only at least there's been a lot of talk about wellness, and people have really tried to increase their appetite on vegetables. There are people you would have heard them say that they don't eat vegetables. They don't like vegetables. I can't eat cabbage. I can't eat sukuma wiki. My children don't eat vegetables. They never eat vegetables. And then you find some people, you're not even bothered by vegetables. However, from the traditional food activities of our forefathers, we know that also the carbohydrate proportion was also very big. But again, we know that at that time, people also did a lot of manual work. There was a lot of physical activity. And by the time the person comes for lunch or for a meal in the evening, all the glucose in the body that has been consumed have been oxidized into energy. So we are looking at the high starch diet in this story of carbohydrates. So we have just looked at the other video and we saw that in the traditional settings, the high starch diet worked well and people did not become sick. Why? Because the high starch diet was made of unrefined starches. They were unrefined starches. And there was a lot of traditional grains. People used to eat a lot of traditional grains. And there was also high body workouts in manual work. There was high body workout in manual work. In those days, there was no diabetes. There was no obesity or cravings. You could not see people just eating and eating and eating and feeling, I want to eat. In fact, when we are growing in the village that time, there were no snacks. You are given your porridge in the morning, and until lunchtime, you can only take a cup of tea with the sweet potatoes or with arrowroot. And then you take your meal for lunch. And then in the evening at 4, you could take a cup of porridge. In the evening, you take your meal, but there were no cravings. There were no cravings. I cannot remember that I was craving for this and that. There were no cravings. I came only to realize of cravings so many years in my life after consuming high starch diet. I consumed for many years a high starch diet, and my body responded greatly and in cravings. You are craving for soda, craving for sweets, craving for things that are sweet. You have eaten your meal, and immediately your body is craving for something. Your mind is saying, let's eat a banana, let's eat a slice of bread, let's eat a scones, let's eat a ripe banana. So these are the cravings that are generated in the body because of a high starch diet. And we are comparing the African situation or the Kenyan situation with the situation of our forefathers who also consumed high starch diet. But they did not have cravings, they did not have diabetes, there was no obesity, there was no cancer. And people were forever active and very strong. Although their foods was still high starch diet, we are saying that the diet they consumed was unrefined starches. Although the whole plate was a lot of fuel of food, it was unrefined starches. And it also had traditional grains, which are whole and which have got the good phytochemicals. And then people worked hard in the field for very long hours. In this way, they burnt all these unrefined starches that was consumed. And this ensured that the body remained healthy and strong, and there was no threat of these diseases. We are still going on with the story of the carbohydrates, which is the story of our food. We have seen that in this part of the world, in Africa and in our country, that carbohydrate plays a very, very important role towards our wellness. And we can no longer ignore our carbohydrates. And here I'm saying thank you very much for your participation. Thank you for your participation in the story of our carbohydrates as it influences wellness in our bodies. This story may help us enter into a place of carbohydrate metabolism that leads to wellness. I trust that this section has been helpful. Developing a healthy carbohydrate culture is an important step in one's journey to wellness. I wish you all the best in your journey to wellness. This story has been created by Eden Cellular Wellness Solutions.